Since becoming much closer with his boss Dana White, who most likely asked him to embrace his The Baddie persona, Paddy Pimblett has been creating enemies left and right. His newest target is none other than the equally controversial Logan Paul. The two have been fighting each other verbally over their individual drink brands, and things may be heating up. So, how did the argument get so out of hand? Let's get right to it. First up, Paddy Pimblett responds to Logan Paul. Logan Paul threatened to sue Paddy Pimblett after the Baddie posted a video criticizing the amount of sugar in his hydration drink Prime. Now, the Brit has responded to the YouTuber to clarify matters. UFC fighter Pimblett recently debuted his own energy drink in partnership with Applied Nutrition and argued that it was superior to Paul's Prime Energy, which he had co-founded with YouTuber KSI. When Pimblett sought to demonstrate how much 2 grams of sugar is, the amount of sugar in Prime, by pouring a sizable amount of it over a table, Paul took offense. In response to the YouTuber's comments, Pimblett reiterated his claim in his video and provided evidence in the form of a scale. While also tagging his beverage Prime Energy, Pimblett stated that he wanted to clarify things for the older Paul and simply advised everyone to get their body fuel at Applied Nutrition, which he claimed was the best hydration beverage on the market. Gareth Powell, head of product development at Applied Nutrition, noted that they had noticed a concerning trend of sports drinks touting progressively larger amounts of single electrolytes in an effort to convince consumers that the more electrolytes, the better the product. But in reality, this isn't the case. In fact, while replacing electrolytes is important during exercise, the amount that is required depends on a person's size, the type of exercise they are performing, and how much they sweat. It is also important to consider the variety and quality of minerals and phosphates in a replacement electrolyte drink. They claim that their drink has the optimum levels of electrolytes to help hydrate and aid muscle functions. Up next, why did Logan threaten Pimblett? Although Paul did not explicitly state that he would take legal action against Pimblett in his initial video, the American acknowledged he could do so if he so desired. He claimed that the Brit had lied and that he could be sued for spreading disinformation to his viewers. But Paul also attacked Pimblett's brand as garbage and that it portrayed Paddy as a cheap sellout. In fact, he thought the video was embarrassing for the UFC fighter and claimed that he had forever attached his name to a knockoff beverage company that resembles Prime in many ways. According to Paul, even the formula that Body Fuel used was the same as Prime's, which also contained less sugar and calories. Paul believed that thanks to Pimblett's video, more people would buy his drink because it was a free promo. But he also added that he liked Paddy and thought he was really entertaining and very excited about his fight against Jared Gordon that hadn't taken place yet. Finally, he added that his drink was created by him and has since become a constant part of his content creation. He offered an example of a drink called King, which was another hydration brand that looked very similar to his Prime, so his lawyer sent a cease and desist letter, and voila, that product doesn't exist any longer. Sounds like a warning to Pimblett if you ask us. Coming up, Pimblett picks a fight with the younger Paul brother too. The 27-year-old discussed his opinions on YouTube boxing with former Premier League footballer Ray Parler and TalkSport breakfast show host Alan Brazil before the greatest fight of his life against Jared Gordon. According to him, all of the YouTube boxers were a bunch of morons. He is okay with giving Jake Paul some credit for his wins, mainly because of the amount of training he has received that could now even help him defeat several professional boxers. But that's because Jake Paul doesn't do anything else apart from practice. Pimblett feels that because he has boundless resources and no other obligations, he has achieved his success. Not to mention, he brings in the greatest coaches, dietitians, and other professionals. So of course, Paul has managed to become a decent boxer. That's as close to a compliment as anyone should expect from Paddy. Following up, he thinks the fights were rigged. Pimblett also admitted that the problem child is a competent boxer, but after seeing Paul's most recent victory over UFC icon Anderson Silva, he thinks some of Paul's matches are rigged. That's a major accusation to make, but that didn't stop the Brit boxer. But even though he believed that some of his bouts are fixed, Jake Paul is actually not that horrible right now. He clarified that he didn't think the Tyron Woodley knockout was fixed, because if a boxer is knocked out like that and lands face first, he'd use his hands to stop his fall, which Woodley didn't. He compared this knockout to his fight against Anderson Silva. Pimblett claimed that from the angle he saw, Paul's punch didn't land. Of course, Jake responded as soon as he heard and stated that he really wanted to like Paddy but couldn't now. Next, Paul offered Pimblett $1 million. Jake Paul called out Pimblett for the unverified claims and stated that he was tired of this despicable narrative. He explained that when he called out the fight for being rigged, he was denigrating the GOAT of his own sport. He was describing Anderson Silva as a phony and a crook and claiming that Viacom, one of the biggest media conglomerates in the world, is engaging in illegal activity. He called Paddy and but still offered him a way to prove himself. He proposed that the two fight it out in a ring, and Paul would pay for the jet to go and pick him up and bring him to Puerto Rico. And if Paddy won, Paul would give him $1 million. Although, if he won, then Pimblett would have to join the United Fighters Association and help him sign up all the fighters in the UK. There's a high likelihood that the fight will eventually come about because the 3-0 UFC fighter said he would entertain a fight with an internet celebrity for the right amount of money. He thought it was a simple payday, and he really didn't care about any of them. The Brit said he fights only the top fighters in a legal and professional manner, but he was totally happy to beat someone up if they wanted to give him millions to do so. Coming up, Sean O'Malley argues Jake Paul could beat Paddy Pimblett. While the match is not yet a reality, people have already started to place their bets on which one of them would come out on top in a fight. Sean O'Malley has asserted that if Jake Paul and Paddy the Baddy engaged in a boxing contest, Jake Paul would F up the other. Ever since the Liverpudlian boxer accused Paul of rigging his recent victory against Anderson Silva, the two have been at odds, and if the sparring session did come to pass, it would not go well for Pimblett, according to O'Malley. On his podcast, Sean voiced that Jake was bigger and a better boxer than Paddy, and after seeing his fight with Gordon, Jake was undoubtedly superior. After defeating Jared Gordon by unanimous decision in his previous fight, the 27-year-old encountered controversy because some analysts gave Gordon the win. O'Malley actually thought it was strange because Paddy has good technique, but when it comes to punching in the cage, he throws from his hip or doesn't land the blows cleanly. This could be backed by an image that's circulating the internet in which it's clear that Paddy's punches connected with Gordon's gloves. Jake Paul, on the other hand, is starting to establish a good professional boxing record despite entering the sport in an unusual way. The 25-year-old has 6 professional wins, including 4 victories over reputable MMA fighters. If you were to run into Pimblett in the ring, even the trash-talking beforehand would make for an interesting encounter. Moving on, GSP tells Paddy Pimblett to ignore the fallout over the latest UFC controversy. Georges St. Pierre, a legendary UFC fighter, has joined Karate Combat as an ambassador. On the Karate Combat 37 set, which was located on the backlot of Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, Bloody Elbow got the opportunity to catch up with the former welterweight and middleweight champions of the UFC. GSP covered a wide range of subjects, including his choice for the main event between Raymond Daniels and Rafael Agaev, how the flood of MMA competitors might change the landscape of karate combat, and even his thoughts on Jake Paul's attempt to form a union of fighters. When he was asked if he had any advice for Paddy Pimblett, whose unanimous decision win over Jared Gordon had prompted an investigation to begin over poor judging, St. Pierre had a small bit of advice. He wanted Pimblett not to pay any attention to that side of the sport. The Hall of Famer, who had a memorable close decision go in his favor near the conclusion of his career, said fighting is a very subjective thing. He felt this was one of the reasons why occasionally there could be divergent viewpoints on the subject. Plus, if a judge's heart was with someone in particular, they may have a tendency to watch that person more than the other and put themselves in that person's shoes more often than the other. Plus, there were many examples of things that might influence their judgment, such as the commentator, other people around them, and what they were saying at the time. Finally, GSP has advice for Pimblett. GSP is right. Every judge is looking at the fight from a different perspective and may not feel the same way about the result as the others. And he's also right about the fact that Paddy can do nothing about what the judges are doing. By keeping this in mind, the best advice GSP could offer was to focus on what Paddy could manage and try to ignore what other people may think. GSP acknowledged that being a fighter was difficult because every fighter cares deeply about their fights and wants to inspire others, but that can also become the hardest part. All Pimblett had to do was concentrate on the things he could influence and only the things he had authority over. He shouldn't waste time worrying about other things that are beyond his control. Sounds like good advice to us. That's a wrap for this video. Do you agree that Pimblett's drink is healthier than Logan Paul's? Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.